we go.
The Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated, joins us every single Wednesday to chop it up. We love him. We got some important conversations to get into. John Maakaron. John, how we doing?
My friends, Booner, did you accept responsibility for costing Michigan the game? Crazy, guys. If you don't follow me on X, you're missing out. At Detroit Podcast, I was browsing the internet. All of a sudden, my notification hits that Booner's doing content from Ann Arbor. And so right away, my first thought was, oh, it's over. And so the second I saw it, I watched it again. I posted to you guys. I said, guys, sorry, the game is over. Booner's there. Michigan's losing by 14. And true to form, Michigan didn't bring their offense.
Doc,
I'm sorry you had to see all that.
It was over when Sharon Moore got hired as the head coach. That was when it was over. What are we talking about here? And I could go to any game with Sharon Moore coaching, they probably would lose. I mean, what are we doing here? Hey, it was awesome though. That was a great day. I enjoyed that day.
Let me tell you, I've sat in the big house a couple times. It's a fun place, especially when Ohio State's kicking your ass.
Yeah.
Too, so.
Hey, that wasn't fun. I'll tell you what, Doc. When Michigan was up in the first quarter, you could ask Jeff. That was like one of the best moments of my entire life, like top five.
I can imagine, but you should have laid low on the content until after they won, my friend.
Hey, but it's good, Doc. And I'm just saying this for the people. Got a lot of engagement. I'll tell you that.
It sure did.
All that shit talking Booner was doing got a lot of engagement. Good stuff, Boone.
People loved it.
Yep, good. He did a great job. Doc, let's just start with the biggest stuff because we haven't been able to talk to you since last week. When Frank was coming back, he's not coming back. So all that crap was for nothing, Doc. What's kind of your reaction to now the Lions have to kind of not readjust because he was never here, but kind of get used to the fact no help's coming on that offensive line. What'd you make of the Frank Ragnow news and how, this guy had a grade 3 hamstring strain. DJ Reed had a grade 2 hamstring strain, missed all that time. And Frank just has a torn apart hamstring and was expecting to come back. This guy is built different, Doc. He's built different.
Yeah, look, I love that narrative. It was a slow week for the Lions, I take it, huh? Since we last spoke, not a lot happening, right? No, there was a lot that happened. Let's start with this, okay? I love the narrative that gets put out that Frank is tough. I get it. He's a former football player, but I was pissed off. It felt like a huge tease. I felt like the organization should have figured it out that how are you going to, especially with this fan base that's hypersensitive to injuries, have that release come out for what purpose? To get everybody's hopes up, to get everybody thinking, oh, well, maybe this is why Brad Holmes didn't make any trades, try to let him off the hook, only to have him have an injury. And I get it. He's a tough person. But at the same time, have some awareness that this fan base is ultra sensitive to injuries. So just think about it. If you're trying to tough it out and you're not 100%, however he got there, if he lifted his kid wrong, if he was working out, however he hurt himself, you're trying to get this team to the postseason. And I know that what kind of insult is that to Graham Glasgow and Tristan Colon that he felt like a 70% version of himself was better than what was out there? That to me just was frustrating in and of itself. It should be a lesson learned. Don't release that kind of stuff unless the player is cleared medically. Yeah, look, he's a tough person. We all know he doesn't lose any credibility in my mind, but I'm just frustrated that the organization tried to put the cart before the horse and was like, wait a minute, what the heck's going on? And it really was a real letdown for fans. And I never like when the fans get their hopes up. They get a little bit more of a belief that this team can play well only to have it snatched away. Figure it out. And I just think that for Frank Ragnow, I said on the Lone Wolves podcast right here on YouTube, I said, you know what? Stay retired. I don't need him back next year because it's like the UFC. You guys know we're big fans of the UFC. Once the UFC gets a sense that you want one foot out the door, you're out. You're out. And I don't want him to come back next year either. I think that let him enjoy retirement. Let's focus on the roster at hand and building the best offensive line possible. And what happened, I thought, was really agitating because the fan base got riled up. And then it's a huge letdown to have that go down and to figure out that he had a grade 3 strain. And no matter what, he knew of it and he did report it, but it's just frustrating all the way around.
Yeah, Doc, obviously there's that happened. We didn't even get to talk to you about the Packers game last Thursday for Thanksgiving. Hope you had an amazing Thanksgiving as well, Doc. Can I just ask you, and we'll get more into the Packers game, more in depth and what happened and all that. Can I just ask you about this defense over the last 2 games? Because The Giants game, it wasn't good. And then this last Thursday, man, it was bad. And Kelvin Shepard actually went to the media, and I'm sure you were there. And he kind of took responsibility for a lot of it and said, hey, as a DC, I'm going to put that game on me. That loss, a lot of it falls on me. What do you think with this defense, man? The last 2 weeks that we've seen, this is supposed to be your healthy unit and the unit that's kind of carrying you through this when your offense is down. And they've been quite frankly just the opposite. What did you kind of take away from that defensive performance last week versus the Packers?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this, about the way the Lions have played, the reason why they haven't been able to stack wins. Look, it's still a good football team. It's a team that can win games. But I feel like, people have been trying. I've listened to a lot of other podcasts. They've been trying to rack their brain and figure out excuses why this team is 7-5. To me, you always in the NFL, you are what your record says you are. You're around an average football team that has some struggles, and it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing. And first and foremost, I think that the blessing, there's going to be some blessings that come from this season, in that I think that Brad Holmes is going to be aware that, okay, draft and develop is not the sole way you win a Super Bowl. That's going to be something that gets put right directly in his radar that, okay, I got to do a little bit more to fix this team and to fix it quickly. But there's a lot of reasons. First and foremost, the defense. We all believe as a fan base, and I understand hope season and what happens in camp, but most people believe that their team is better than they are. And when you lose Kirby Joseph, that's a huge loss. I love the names, Legion of Whom and all that kind of stuff. But if those were guys that were going to be starting 11, they'd be starting. So the Legion of Whom was cute. But let's get back to reality. When you lose players and Terrion Arnold's been in and out of the lineup, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, Ennis Rakestraw, not there. You didn't address your defensive end room the right way, the way the fans told you to address it. And you, Booner, and Hefe, and this show, and everybody that said, hey, that defensive end room could be improved. They were proven right. And by and large, you win games, you can stop the run. That's something you can hang your hat on. But this is a passing offensive league. If you're going to let a quarterback get 2.5 seconds or more, they will find even Jordan Love, even you, Booner, even Bryce Underwood in Sharon Moore's antiquated system. If you give him 2.5 seconds, even he, who doesn't throw the ball, can find an open receiver. And Michigan doesn't have any receivers. So you have to find ways to get pressure and sacks. And in this town, for some reason, they've been excused away. And people love to dig in their media numbers and sit in the lab and be like, well, this guy has this much pressures, and this guy, from A to Z all the way down the line with all their stats go, the defensive end room's great. And we're going, from A to Z, we look at it and go, the defensive end room is not good enough. You need more. You should have maybe drafted another one outside of Ahmed Hassanin. So when you don't pressure the quarterback to the level over the last month that you need to, you're going to get picked apart. You're not getting off the field. And quite frankly, Dan was right. If they're going to make their fourth down plays and make their key plays and you don't, that's the recipe to lose games. It's all across the board. Out-coached, out-schemed, out-executed. That's how you lose a game in front of 47 million people, is that they see that when you should kick a field goal with the team that you have, you decide that I'm still going to do it again. And look, Goff had a throw that maybe J-Mo, the throw should have been better and J-Mo should have made the catch. Well, guess what? That's how, listen, bottom line, Dan Campbell's told you fans and told everybody in the chat, live by the sword. There's a little phrase after it. Die.
You die by it, Doc. You die by it.
That's where you're at this point in the season with a 7-5 record, dying on the sword.
Doc, let me ask you, in the game, I guess a positive storyline you can kind of expand on. Isaac Tesla got more snaps than he's ever had in a game before. This is an opportunity that, we'll see what happens with Amon-Ra, which we will ask you about the injuries and stuff. But just from Isaac Tesla, just analyzing him, how did he look in your opinion based on everything you've seen this year, training camp, and now he's getting utilized a little more? This is an opportunity for Brad, I guess, to show the Lions fan base, hey, this is the toy I traded up for. He looks pretty good out there, Doc.
Yeah, well, a third-round pick, you're going to use him. What do you know? But look, I actually asked Amon-Ra last week. I said, when you look at Amon-Ra's career, he started to pick up the pace around this time as well. So listen, any offense that requires shifts at the line of scrimmage, understanding where your route is. Listen, Jared Goff is not like, some average person that just trusts openly. It takes time to develop trust. Isaac needs to in practice. He hasn't had all that much practice time in regards to, first team reps are going to go to Amon-Ra, Jameson before the injury, Sam Laporta. So he wasn't going to develop at that rate. And so remember, the Lions are not thinking like the fans in the chat are. They're thinking, let this guy develop calmly. Let him be behind the scenes. We got Amon-Ra. We got Jameson. We got Sam Laporta. We got Jahmyr Gibbs. We don't have to throw this guy to the wolves. But now necessity, because the injury bug keeps biting you in the ass, you got to use him. And luckily, he's got the skills to be able to handle more practice reps, be able to win reps. He's got the confidence, and he's got that big play mentality. And so it's good. I think that he'll have some more opportunities. Hopefully Goff can actually find him accurately with the time given by that young offensive line. Because remember, guys, your $50 million quarterback needs that recipe to kind of be right. And even though a guy like me says, this is NFL football, you got to be able to be better off platform. And I'm going to say it, that Jared Goff has to be better off platform. He's not going to be, Patrick Mahomes, but he can be better than what he's been. And if he can do that and get off his spots and be able to find the targets, I think Isaac TeSlaa will be a factor. But guys, straightforward, straight up. You gave him the extension. It's time. It's JMO time. You target him until the cows come home. This game is a JMO, David Montgomery, and a Jahmyr Gibbs game, and you ride the wave of success with the guys that are the best players on your team.
Hi, I'm Jeff Iafrate. I'm here to tell you why Sleeper Picks is the best thing to utilize while watching sports. Let me explain. It's very simple. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from across sports, pregame, live, and you pick more or less than the predicted stats. And for today's game, Lions-Cowboys, I have my picks, which you guys can follow. Obviously, gamble responsibly. I have more on Jameson Williams receiving yards, more on Jahmyr Gibbs rushing yards, and more on George Pickens receiving yards. And I also threw in there Brandon Aubrey, the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys, more 1.5 field goals made. Very simple. You can choose your picks or follow mine, but either way, follow along and gamble responsibly. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring the video as always.
Hey, what do you think outside of the Tesla stuff? How do you think that they approach it this week when it comes to that? Do you think they're just going to rely heavy on Jahmyr Gibbs and just run the ball down this Dallas Cowboys team's throats? Or do you think that they're going to actually try and get some of these? Tom Kennedy. Do you think Tom Kennedy has 5 catches for 50 yards, Doc? Should I bet on Tom Kennedy?
You got to – first of all, let's go back to the Packers game. Dan hinted at it. Remember, that's not the true Lions. The issue is 3 days rest is not enough to get you by. You saw Dan, he was wired on coffee in a media session. He gave me a short answer like he was just all over the place. You don't sleep, you don't do a lot of different things. So you're just trying to survive. And so you saw it in the game planning. The trick plays that they used were just rehashes of plays that they've used, and the Packers knew it. So you just tried to survive. And it's one of those deals where the Packers made a little bit more plays than you. This game, I expect the full playbook. I expect that there'll be some wrinkles and there'll be some new ideas out there. It just sucks, too, because Laporta and Brock Wright being injured is unfortunate. I would have loved to have seen Brock Wright gain an opportunity. But you're absolutely right. Dan Campbell can sleep better because you can use Jahmyr Gibbs in the screen game a little bit better. You definitely have to use Jameson Williams. You got to find a way to get some explosive plays, handle business on third down. But again, the secret is not terribly all that difficult. You want to stay ahead of the chains. You want to have good first and second down plays and handle the opportunities to stay on the field. I'm maybe hopeful, but I want to be entertained. I feel like this could be a shootout. I'm hoping. Now, that's me as a fan. Logically, I think that if you're reasonably looking at this from a coach's perspective, not as a fan that wants to be entertained with a lot of touchdowns, a lot of deep passes and excitement, help this fan base enjoy their $300 ticket. I would say if you're Dan Campbell, you run the hell out of that ball and you hope that you're able to stay on the field, limit the possessions, similar to the game you had earlier in the year where you just kind of have it where there's not a lot of possessions, eat up a lot of clock, the average drive to be 6-7 minutes, and have an opportunity to score and take the field goal. And I think the best true defense against Dak and the best receivers that the Lions are going to see this year is to keep Dak on the bench. So I would say maybe this is the game where you finally don't forget about David Montgomery and you remember that when you were winning games, he was carrying the load. So Gibbs, Montgomery, and whether or not you have Amon-Ra, he's going to have an ankle injury. To what degree you're going to be able to use him, I'm just going to call him a decoy, realistically. But I think that J-Mo now, this opportunity for him to be a one, I kind of want to see it. Like, hey, can you be a number one receiver and to be able to get after it the way that you need to? So I'm excited to see it, but I think the logical choice would be to run that ball and keep the football out of Dak's hands because, it's going to be wild to see Amik and DJ Reed trying to stop CeeDee Lamb and Pickens, because those two guys, if they get going, they're going to put on a show. I think mentally you try and get them off their spots. You try and physically do some things. I think mentally you can get them off their game and you can rattle them with some side stuff and a little bit of press man kind of stuff. So we'll see how it plays out. But I think that defensively, you just got to find a couple more turnovers to get the offense a couple more possessions.
Well, it's actually what I want to talk to you about too. We talked about Kirby. I mean, Kirby Joseph's dealing with an injury that's it's a weird one. It's a weird injury because it seems pretty straightforward, knee, but then you have like Twitter doctor saying it's a career altering, and then you have Kirby just overall, he's practicing, but also you don't really know what's going on. Deletes his social media, seems to be kind of dealing with some things, not really sure the whole context of it. But you see the importance of Kirby Joseph now without having him, that when this defense does give up big plays, you don't have a guy that can consistently take the ball away, and you're missing his ability to get turnovers. He does it all the time, but what have you kind of seen not with this Lions defense not having Kirby Joseph? How much do they miss him, Doc? And can you kind of give some insight to that injury he's dealing with?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me do this for you guys. I understand everybody loves football. Podcasters love football. YouTubers love football. Internet doctors love football. You have some sites that use internet doctors to write reports. Guys, that is one piece of the information cycle. And actually, it's a very low. There's expertise. They may have some awareness of it. But guys, the individual that you can directly get information from is the man we asked the question to, which is Mr. Dan Campbell. Now, I get it. What happens is that these doctors go off of what Dan says and they start to speculate. It's pure speculation. They don't have Kirby's medical report. They don't talk to Kirby. They don't get information like that. They are purely doing what is the thing that would trigger a fan is guessing. And the fan base was all wild. I've never looked at a doctor's report that I saw. I like these people. They're very friendly. They do a lot of fun stuff, but it's not gospel. So if you were going to go that route and believe that Kirby's career was going to be altered, why didn't you listen to Dan Campbell? Dan said he is working on his way back. Now, the tough part is where, I'm limited to one question and then 5 people are going to cut me off and try to get it. The real question that we should have asked, and that's my fault, and I'll own up to it. We should have asked at the time 3 weeks ago, do you expect Kirby Joseph to play this year directly? And we went round and round and round. And I know why they do that. So you can keep writing the same kind of stories over and over and over. The hopeful, he could come back. He could come back. I get all that. We should have asked that directly to put this to bed. But Dan said it. He said, and this is where people got concerned. He's like, they are doing things. We are not going to put Kirby back on the field unless we feel like he can play and then come off the field and be able to go back consistently. We don't want him in and out of the lineup. So that's why he's missed so many games. He said he may, and the part that scared everybody, he may have residual pain. It may never get truly better. Remember, he plays football and people are going to go at him. And it may be something structurally where he has something to deal with, but it's not at this very moment considered career altering. You keep hearing reports from the national media who are clearly, who they're talking to. They're getting reports that maybe he's going to come back against the Los Angeles Rams. So that's how I take it at face value. Dan has been fairly honest with his assessments. I don't think that, I think that this offseason is going to be key and maybe something where he's maybe not going to play into his late 30s, but I think that he's going to be able to hopefully help this team down the stretch for the next 4 or 5 games. And if that's possible, you get into the postseason with Kirby, that helps. But yeah, the man is going to deal with some stuff. And people speculate a lot regarding what's going on, regarding his mood and things like that. Dan kind of made it seem like, okay, he's mad because he's not practicing or he was only limited. But the man's not happy. because it's a big ordeal for him. He's not on the field, not practicing, not doing what he loves. He sees the team struggling. He sees the defense not doing what they need to do. They're not getting turnovers, and he knows that he's not contributing a skill that this football team has. So listen, it's great. It's great to see stuff online from internet doctors, but remember, Dan is asked thoroughly about this, and there was never there. I don't think there was ever a report that it was ever going to be season ending. It just was going to be, and to the degree that you guys trust when Dan says it's getting better, it's something that I understand also too competitively, that when he does come back, you do want to keep it as hush-hush as possible for some level of competitive balance. But it's something to monitor with Kirby Joseph this offseason, the work that he does, a full offseason to rehab it, what it could look like. But I would say at this point in time, no need to be freaked out that his current career is going to end. Maybe after the 26th season, you reevaluate it, but maybe he just has to adapt his physical style of play to be able to play smarter, not harder, and figure it out how to be able to be a ball hawk. But yeah, it's an injury. It's something that when Dan says it's going to be chronic, that definitely causes a lot of concern. But remember, guys, the internet doctors don't have exactly the information the way in which the player and the coaching staff does. And I think the chat can be reasonable. You guys can tell me, because I'm in it and maybe my judgment is clouded. I felt Dan has been relatively honest regarding these injuries and kind of where they're at. Sometimes he'll say a player's not going to practice and then they show up early, but I feel like Dan has kind of been honest and maybe even too open regarding the level of these injuries. It's a bone bruise. It's a knee situation. He's working his way back. And from the national report, which is also from Dan, there's an expectation he's working his way. And listen, you work your way back by starting at practice, seeing how it is. It stunk that he couldn't get 2 more days of practice. We'll see starting Monday next week, does he get back in practice to be able to contribute against the Los Angeles Rams? You're going to need him.
Yeah, Doc, can I say just another injury question? The Terrion Arnold one. I know that felt like, I don't know if it came out of nowhere. At least it felt like that we had the conversation where it was just out of nowhere. He has a shoulder injury. I don't know if it was a hit in the game or what. And then boom, just on IR. Can you talk about the Terrion Arnold, not just the injury, but the season as a whole? Because you were at training camp and Jeff and I talked about it being at training camp. It felt like TA was set to have a massive year. He looked so good in camp. And then it feels like it was a disappointing season for him. Do you think this is something for TA where it's hey, better luck next year? He's going to be back and he's going to be, high level corner next year? Or do you think this is something going forward with TA where, hey man, you're a rookie contract guy and we're going to have to find a new replacement? I know it's early to say that, but I mean, it's year 2 now and there's really been not the most positives out of it. This injury year and then last year struggled as a rookie. There's not a bunch of positives to take out of so far him as a Lion.
Yeah, this is how it went down. He definitely has a lot of confidence in his ability, but here's the cavalcade of reasons as to what happened. He injured himself earlier in the year, I believe against Cincy. He had the shoulder situation. He worked his way back. Remember, he got the good second opinions that maybe he could come back and do some things. So remember, these athletes are crazy in that there's injuries and then there's being hurt. These guys will play hurt, but you can't play when you're injured. Then he had the concussion and then he re-injured it against the Packers. So here's what's going down. And you can clearly see it. These are football-related injuries. And the one to Ennis Rakestraw happened in training camp at a practice. Dan and Kelvin Shepherd, and it's something I was trying to figure out a way to ask it where I wouldn't get laughed out of the room, but it's something that you can realistically talk about. The Lions want their corners to play like linebackers, being heat-seeking missiles against these running backs, against these other wideouts. They want them to tackle physically. And when you do that, remember, Terrion got ripped for kind of being a little bit lackadaisical in his tackling. He got called out publicly. So then he went back. He's like, I can't have Kelvin saying my play is unacceptable. What was unacceptable was against the run, he wasn't going like a heat-seeking missile. But unfortunately, the Lions will love you more for playing the way that he did and getting injured than maybe scaling it back and being available. And that's crazy to me. You need Terrion. It's wild. And you can't tell these guys to play differently. This is the mentality. And I was thinking of so many ways to ask Dan this week, do you need to scale back practice? Do you need to keep these guys healthy? You need these guys. But the answer is no. They are not changing. They have a philosophy. You would think, right, guys, naturally, if all these dudes were falling by the wayside on defense, that you would do something to adapt that this year. Nope, it's the same thing. Full-on tackling, one-on-one battles that are ferocious when they do. But Dan does ease up with a series of walkthroughs later in the year to take care of the guys' bodies. Zadarius Smith told me one-on-one, like, yeah, we're going to practice rugged and we're going to practice harder than most teams, but that's how we win. But when we tell Dan, hey, our bodies are feeling a certain way, Dan backs off. He's definitely a coach that's supremely at the highest level in tune with the bodies of his players. But here's the problem. When they practice, they go rough. And I'm talking about one-on-ones, good on good, battling. You want to hear a funny story, which made me question myself? And it's a true funny story. It kind of brings my whole year full circle.
Let her rip, Doc.
It's wild. It's wild because I should have wrote it, but I didn't even know within the rules. I should have asked, but I'll say it like this. You know that story that Will Birchfield wrote today about Hassanin getting after it and almost getting in trouble for hitting golf? Hassanin told me that a week ago. So I was talking to him off the cuff. I was just asking after his first practice, a little bit. Now that's on the record. We just talked casually. I didn't put a recorder in his face. I just want to talk to Ahmed one-on-one personally. Like, hey, man, you're learning. What are you doing? How was your first practice? And he's like, yeah, man, I went. He just let it rip. And I'm like, my thought in my head was, are you supposed to be telling me this? Like, okay. And I thought, should I pull out a recorder and tape this? I was like enjoying the conversation. We spent 20 minutes just talking. And he's like, so Will's story is not exactly accurate. And that didn't happen this week. It happened last week because he told me and I told my wife. I said, look what happened. I'm like, could you imagine a 6th-round pick doing a drill, going so hard he doesn't stop, he hits Jared Goff? And I'm like, what? I was like, how is that even in the realm of possibility with this team? And so you can go check it out. Will got the exact same version. He asked some more detailed questions, but Hassanin wanted to tell that story. He told me, he told Will. Will wrote it. I thought that, you know what? Maybe that's not information that should be privy to the public, that Jared Goff almost got killed by a rookie. But, he's open. So now I know, I learned as a reporter that if someone speaks it and you're there, pull out the recorder, start talking, see what happens. But to me, that wasn't the purpose. Like, if you think I was chasing that, I wasn't. I just wanted to talk to Ahmed and get a little bit of knowledge about how he was practicing. I wanted to learn the defensive end position from his point of view. And he's a great talker. But that story was crazy to me. Like, how is that supposed to happen in a practice? And that's bad luck. He tripped over a guy and things like that. But could you imagine if golf rolls an ankle or something happens? Dude, these guys go at it and they practice rough. And Ahmed confirms it. Like, he's battling Sewell. He's battling tackles, Taylor Decker. They're battling. They're not – it's not I wish they would let us, like, just once a year, just let us sit for a whole 2-hour practice. What do they do? Like, let us see it. And but from all accounts, from what Zadarius Smith told me, from what Ahmed told me, from what all the defensive ends that talk to me, when they go. And that's how they get better. That's how they are a football team. But guess what, guys? Unfortunately, the good is you get a good football team that can have an over 500 record. The problem is your best players are getting hurt and they're falling by the wayside. And so it's a double-edged sword. I don't know how I feel about it because you're potentially not going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown in a must-win game. You're not going to have Sam Laporta, back injury. You're not going to have – and I know these things happen in games, but if you block consistently in practice, then you go to a game, you don't think you're getting beat up in your back and hit and tackled and pushed by all these defensive ends. It's a brutal sport, and Dan respects that to the highest level, but I do think the Lions practices are putting the players in a rougher spot compared to maybe other teams, but that's the way Dan's going to roll with it, and you have to respect it. It produced a 12 and a 15 win year, but if we're talking turkey, can the Legion of Whom on defense get you to the playoffs and win a Super Bowl? You got to look at it. Because remember, these players, when I ask them, when I talk to these players, I don't say, oh, okay. I say, well, compared to the Browns, how are the Lions practices? Everybody's eyes open. They go, this is different. It's different. So I don't know. It's one of those deals where I'm excited to see how it plays out. Can reserves that you've trained, that you believe are the guys that you can trust, can they go out there and get the job done? We shall see. I'm always of the opinion talent. I want Terrion out there. I want him to be somebody that can play and break up passes. I want my tight end catching footballs. And but they got a block, no rock here in Detroit.
Yeah, Doc, I want to ask specifically AQM, but really the defensive line. You talked about it earlier, but just diving more into it. AQM's production's obviously dipped. He hasn't had a sack in 4 games. He was never going to have the production he had at the beginning of the year all year. I mean, he was on pace to have a massive season, and it's dipped off, and his snaps have gone down. You know, depending on what side of the equation you are, maybe you want Kelvin to give him more snaps, more of an opportunity. But to tie it back to Aiden's playing a ton of snaps. Aiden plays pretty much the entire game. And I know he's kind of done that through his career, and it's been pretty successful. But what have you made of Aiden's usage, or at least the amount of snaps he plays? I think Myles Garrett plays way less snaps than he does, and Myles has been really productive. So I don't know if that's something the Lions look at. And then B, AQM and just the fall off with him. And you could kind of tie it and give your thoughts on Brad Holmes, because this is the defensive line room he was confident in. DN2 with AQM and DN2 with Marcus Davenport. It just feels like they're not getting anything. The big argument right now with Lions fans, Doc, is either you're on the side where Aiden needs to do much more, he's overpaid, or he doesn't have any help. Like it's a big debate right now.
Yeah, it's weird because you look at it and you say, you know, a great media member asked, I believe, Calvin Shepard, hey, you know, Aiden plays a lot of ball, like 98% of snaps defensively. Do you think you need to take him off the field? And Calvin's answer was, you go tell Aiden I'm taking him off the field. I'm like, no, you go tell him to take him off the field, because in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, in my last review of the stats, when I did take a look at him, I felt like Myles Garrett's playing around 70%. A lot of the defensive ends, maybe if it's not him specifically, a lot of the average defensive ends are playing 70% of the defensive snaps. Aiden Hutchinson's playing 25% more. Does he look tired? No, he's got a relentless motor, but he's getting chipped and doubled. And guess what? The fans said, hey, this is why the fans are now angry when you and I and Booner were angry back in September. We said, guys, this defensive end room might need work. And all the fans were like, no. All the fans that say, you don't know ball, you don't know this. Al-Quadin Muhammad and Marcus Davenport, let Brad. We don't know ball. Okay, well, now you're mad that the team is not doing things along the defensive line. Now you've caught up 4 months later. Well, my job is to be 4 months ahead of you in my thinking, in my analysis, not 4 months behind. You guys are now getting mad. Oh my God, I'm so happy that okay. Here's what the fan base was actually believing. They for a minute was believing that Al-Quadin Muhammad was like Zadarius Smith, was at that same level, was worth that player, was actually on the, maybe we got a Marcus Davenport in disguise. Guys, stats don't lie in regards to a body of work. So Al-Quadin Muhammad, over a small 3-game period could look like the best player in the world. But over the course of a whole season, guys, it's a simple sport. How much is he making? If Al-Quadin Muhammad was a baller and was a top of the line defensive end, he'd be making north of $10 million. You are what your salary says you are. It's a straightforward league, guys. Don't make it more complicated. So why was Booner and you, Jeff, and analysts looking at it going, wait a minute, this team looks good on paper in all these areas except one, opposite of Aiden. And what are we saying now? Opposite of Aiden, no one's winning their one-on-ones.
It's like some people that also follow the team know what they're talking about, and they're not.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
because they're not the GM doesn't mean that no one knows what they're talking
and
about.
So, and remember that he'll give you an explanation why he wanted to pay Aiden. I wouldn't have. I would have waited. At this point in time, you could have went out and got somebody else and played a little hardball with Aiden. See, play out the whole year. See what it looks like when he's the go-to guy. If there is no help, if you have a Marcus Davenport and Al-Quadin Muhammad, do we need to go and allocate more resources to that? When you do what you did with Aiden now, in the coming years, guys, your options to go out and get all these guys goes down. You're going to have escalators with Goff, with Penei Sewell, with Amon-Ra, with J-Mo. So you're going to have room with the cap growing a little bit to get guys, but the options get limited. So what did people say? You didn't have to pay J-Mo. You didn't have to pay Kirby. You didn't have to fall in love with all these guys and give them money. You could have played them out to their 5th year. And if you're an excellent drafter and maybe when you're drafting in the 20s, you're not as good comparatively when you're drafting in the top 10, when it's a little easier. So it's a challenging situation to look at, but point blank, Aiden needs to do more. The whole entire defensive line needs to do more. But here's the thing. You can't expect Tyleek Williams, who's not a sack artist. DJ Reader is not a sack artist. Ali McNeil is not a sack artist. They want to stop the run. So I want to say it in a way that the average fan can understand. The Lions, it's not talent per se. And I think maybe you'll start to see it going forward the rest of the year. I guess the way you want to put it, it's like the way some people have used it is it's a crush the can approach to pressure, where the sacks are not as important. It's to disrupt the quarterback. And so they're not counting on guys that are not super speedy to get there super fast. They just want to pressure the quarterback. And so they want to disrupt the way in which the quarterback moves so that the secondary can do their job. So they're not emphasizing it to the degree that we are screaming like, hey, if you bring down the quarterback, that puts everybody behind the chains, that does this, but that's not how they're doing it. They got big lumbering guys. So yeah, they and Aiden Hutchinson still has 8.5 sacks. But what the problem is you can't let these quarterbacks have 2.5 seconds or more. You're not pressuring the quarterback effectively enough to get him off the spot. And then second of all, when you play man-to-man coverage and you don't get home, no cornerback, not Dion, not Amik Robertson, not DJ Reed, not Terrion Arnold, not nobody is going to be able to block that long against these talented receivers. So the way I said it on the Lone Wolves podcast a couple weeks ago is you have this marriage of rush and coverage, and it's a marriage that needs counseling. And the counseling came from the fans like, hey, sack the quarterback, get somebody that can speed. Like where you guys were saying, like a James Houston, where maybe he's not great against the run. He's not a 3-down guy, but the dude can actually run to the quarterback and actually, what the Lions do, which is weird, is they get the guy within their reach and they hug him, but they can't bring him down. They can't record the sack. Like I've never seen so many quarterbacks be able to evade the final product. These guys are Jameis Winston, Jordan Love were able to evade when the Lions got there. So I don't care about pressures. I mean, it's a great number. We all look at it, pressure rate, pass rush, win rate. Sacks are important. Sacks are the final exam. When you can get, and you need one, you need a speed. You need a guy that can get to the quarterback quick. And because Dan said it, he's like, well, these guys are getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds. Well, guess what? If you get a guy, simple as this, okay? And 1 rep on Thanksgiving will show you what we want. Okay. And luckily I saw it and I got to tweet it when it happened. I said, guys, the fan base all year long wanted what Micah Parsons did on that 1 rep when he sacked Jared Goff, when he blew by Taylor Decker. You want a guy up and under, right to the quarterback. And that happened like that, guys. Go back and watch the tape. It was up and under, boom, he was already gone. And he was able to get to Jared Goff quickly. That's what you were looking for. You were looking for Micah Parsons, and a guy that didn't have 50 pieces on his checklist would have brought Micah Parsons here, and you had it. You had the chance. Would they have traded to Detroit? You never know, but you don't think Micah Parsons would make Detroit's defense look a little bit better? Come on, guys. Talent wins in this league, and we all wanted the best talent, and now the fans are realizing, oh, well, you're paying Aiden, but you're going a little bit of hope with some guys that, and look, we didn't even say, like, we're all fans. We're like, get Micah Parsons. We just needed better than AQM and Marcus Davenport. We just needed better. So we'll see. And I think now we'll have an opportunity to look at that defensive end room and figure it out because it's killing the team.
Yeah, Doc, can I ask you, for going into tomorrow night, what's your confidence level that they win this game? Do you believe that the Lions do win, and how do you think this whole game plays out tomorrow versus the Dallas Cowboys?
Listen, it's always tough because I do wrestle with it, my head and my heart. My heart says they just whooped the Cowboys' ass, and they're gritty, and they are listening to all this nonsense that people are saying they're done, that they're a team that's falling by the wayside, that Brad can't cook anymore, and they just go out there and play angry and win a home game and play well. But my heart says, whoop their ass, play your best game, lock in, and get after Dak, turn the ball over. He has a Dak game. Dak's been on my fantasy team for like 3 years, and he's boom or bust. You get good Dak, he's going to kill you. But I think that this game, Kelvin said they might shift some things, so that leads me to believe that maybe they're not going to play as much man-to-man. I mean, would you play man-to-man on Pickens and CeeDee Lamb? I think you need some more over-the-top cover 3 kind of concepts. Make sure that nobody goes over the top on your ass. So my head says this is 2 teams that are hungry, and they're kind of the same team. And the Cowboys defense is there to be had. So I'm hoping for a competitive game where the Lions make the plays late. I think it's going to be competitive. I want it to be entertaining. I think the Lions pull this one out like 30-27, and they get to the Rams, and that's where, things can, really be exposed in a different way. I think the Lions at home in a situation where they're desperate. 2 teams are desperate. So, and Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are going to get some, but I think in the end, collectively, you have some pieces on offense that can do some things. I really believe if you figure it out, Jahmyr Gibbs is really a weapon that Dan can really highlight in a way that's similar to Alvin Kamara. And you ride that wave and you get him the ball and you find ways in the screen game. You find ways off tackle with Penei Sewell and on the side of simple advice. Let's just not do 4 runs up the middle. Let's kind of avoid the interior run game. Let's do this. David Montgomery can hit the interior and Jahmyr can bounce outside. And we don't need to prove that Jahmyr can run through the tackles. Nobody wants to see it. I want to see Jahmyr Gibbs run through the side of Penei Sewell, who's the best player in the league. And let's do that. And let's see J-Mo Cook, and let's see why you paid him that money. So, and then let's see, for me, the biggest thing I want to see is Jared Goff turning things around and not playing like the guy that the last month we got the Rams Goff. Let's get the playoff Goff from the Lions, and let's get him upright and cooking and dissecting I feel like, guys, seriously, and I don't want to say this begrudgingly and disrespectfully, but if Matt Eberflus comes in here in Detroit and is able to thrive as a defensive coordinator, I'm going to be sick to my stomach. You should be able to expose him pretty easily.
Yeah, Doc, I did want to ask you a conversation we've had a lot more reflecting back on Brad Holmes a little bit. I know people have, including us, have been kind of going at him for, different reasons. Belief in the interior offensive line, which isn't that good. Belief in the defensive end room, specifically DN2, which isn't that good. What's kind of your take now looking back at some of his draft classes? I know the 2023 draft class was elite. It was special, but just 2024, 2025, what have you kind of made of Brad Holmes, his approach to the draft, some of the draft picks, and just his approach now with 2 drafts after that great draft, and some of the prior drafts have been really good. What do you think of it all?
Yeah, no, it's Brad's been honest. When he built that team in the first 3 drafts, you were just looking for guys to field the team and build the core, and you did that with Aiden, Penei, Amon-Ra. Great picks. There's not really, some of the ones, the second round curse is maybe still there with the Levi's and the Josh Pascals. Yeah. There's still some issues, but nobody's going to hit on everything. But you did enough to build a nice foundation. You did enough. It's nice. This is a team that should win 9-10 games for the foreseeable future. Now you get to the part where you draft and develop. The first 3 years, you get your core, you get your stars, you get your peoples, you build your line, you build in the trenches. A couple of those guys missed. Now here comes the problem. You went in the direction of projects. And when you're in a Super Bowl window, you don't do that. NFL teams don't do that. You don't take 2-year guys in the window. You don't take a Hendon Hooker. You don't need to. You go out and you pay a veteran. And they thought that they could develop Hendon Hooker, and they thought that there was something there. There was a family tie. You didn't need to draft Hendon Hooker. You didn't need to draft Broderick Martin. You need to draft Giovanni Manu. You didn't need to. So now here's the converging philosophy. Brad said, as we get better, as we fill out this team, it's going to be harder for the draft picks to play and make the team. So he's now looking for depth pieces, guys that can fill in roles. Well, unfortunately, people were saying about Ennis Rakestraw, he's going to have a hard time being on the field. He was hurt at Missouri. Why would you take that player? And it came out to fruition that he's a player that potentially, you can't have that happen. You can't have a 2nd round pick in a Super Bowl window not play for the better part of 2 years. That can't happen. That's why nobody right now, unless they're the true slappies, yeah, they could get into the postseason. I didn't say that the season's over, but does anybody realistically in their gut, would they realistically write for money that the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl this year? Nobody other than the Slappies are talking like that. They're talking, man, this is tough. A lot of injuries, a lot of situations in which you took players that didn't pan out. And so in my mind, I recognize that, okay, you maybe could have looked at the offensive line last year and went with more of a ready-made center. If you had the inclination, you could have went in a different direction. Last year, I mean, literally, I couldn't believe I had to tweet this. Every pick from last year has missed multiple games due to injury, has been near IR or on IR. Every single one. That is wild to think about. You're not getting a lot of those contributions. Those can be some of the depth guys that you're looking at right now. Could be you could have had a defensive end in one of those picks in 24 or 25. You could have solved some of those positions that we're talking about now. Maybe a different cornerback. It's easy in hindsight to look at it like that, but you need more impact. But to me, when Brad said publicly, and which makes sense, as you draft 30th or between 25th and 30th every round, it is unbelievably hard to get an impactful player. The further down, just think about it. The Lions are going to pick now in the 20s for the foreseeable future. That takes an extra amount of skill to be able to find those guys that are going to contribute. So to me, I respect that he traded those third-round picks for Isaac Tesla. I get it. He might be a good player, but I would have tried to – there was nobody on the defensive side of the football. There's not another offensive lineman earlier than Miles Frazier in the 5th round, I believe. There was nobody earlier that you thought could play along the offensive line. Usually the higher up you get picked, the better the player is. So I look at it like not the best last 2 drafts. And so to me, I asked Brad directly. I wasn't scared. I said, Brad, what did you guys learn from whiffing? And I said to his face, what did you learn from whiffing and missing on Hendon Hooker and Broderick Martin? And he said it. He said, we can do all, and he said it publicly, guys. You can go see it. I said it nice and clear, and him and Ray had to defend it. You can do all the work, all the preparation, all the interviews, check out all the scouting. And he said, we can do all of that. But if it doesn't work out, there's one variable I have to share with you guys, and that's the true definition of risk. That's what happens. It's a risk. Any draft pick is a risk. So you guys out there in chat land, or some of you guys that are loving these draft picks, I treated the first 3 like they were gold, and the last 2 I would have maneuvered for proven guys. Like move up and around, get guys that are proven to come in here and round out your team. These picks would you miss any of them? No. Obviously this year has a little bit more impact with Tyleek being a starter and Tate Ratledge. It's fine. But if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, I would have taken an opportunity to maybe shift some of those picks to another NFL team for people that actually can play football and actually can be around on your team when you need them the most. So I am of the firm ability to say, hey, F them picks. What are you waiting for? Like, there's only a handful of Trevors that will sit there on their hands and be slappies forever. Your fan base is angry. They want you to win. There's only the amount of slappies. Guys, it wasn't me booing at Ford Field on Thanksgiving. It wasn't me. Granted, I ask tough questions and have the ability to be direct with people. It wasn't me booing. It's not me calling up the radio stations blasting the team. It's not me. I just do podcasts and cover the team quietly in the press box. You all are the ones booing. Why are you guys mad? Because you're not winning a Super Bowl. You're not winning a Super Bowl this year. So Brad owes me 2023 and 2025. But you guys, have different standards than somebody like me. I would be a little bit upset if I was paying $5,000, that much of an increase, and your football team is not giving you anything. You know what I mean? The end game, the true nature of football, there's one goal: win a Super Bowl. All this other stuff is conjecture and talking. You know what I mean? Just like, the Michigan fans. Michigan fans are not really happy after getting their ass beat by Ohio State, as they should be. I'm hoping Michigan State gets to that level. You guys are mad at 9-3. And I told Adam on the Doc and Jock podcast today, I said, I love that about you guys. You guys are pissed at 9-3 with a quarterback that could be developing. I'm like, man, that's awesome. Yeah, you should fire Sharon Moore. Get somebody you literally had a quarterback that you pay $3 million to, and you don't throw the ball. You lost to all the good teams. You got out coached by Matt Patricia. Are you serious? Every time the pressure rose up for Michigan, they curled and ran the football.
How did this get to Michigan, Doc? How did you get to Michigan? How did you get all the way to Michigan?
Easy. I got to Michigan because I truly believe.
I mean, what are we doing here?
No, it's the philosophy of when people are doing their job and they have a responsibility to meet the highest level of responsibility. I feel like Jeff asked a great question. Brad Holmes did great his first 3 years. The last couple drafts did not put this team in the position to win the Super Bowl this year. It put them in the position. It put them in the position to win 10 games and to give them a chance. But, when it comes down to it, it's time to ship some of those risky picks. Because listen, are we missing any of those 24 picks? None. They're all gone. So if you would have traded all of them for a couple of proven bodies, you might be in a better spot than you are now. So you got to hit on some of these guys. I mean, that 24 class has to have a huge rebound next year. Otherwise, you won't be a winning football team anymore.
Hey, what do you think, Doc? I do want to ask you, and I kind of want your official prediction. Do you think, sitting here today, Wednesday, December 3rd, do the Detroit Lions make the playoffs this year?
I do. I think that I look at it and guys, please don't hate me. This is just this is the historian in me talking. Okay. What does this fan base really look at? Okay. Me, I am Super Bowl or bust. That's all I care about. I don't care about if they make the playoffs, how they look in the playoffs, who's trending. I think I heard some reporter today kind of say, well, I kind of thought that this year might've been a retooling year. Hell no, it wasn't a retooling year. Are you crazy? That's how you spin your head and go, oh, well, yeah, you had all these things go on, but look at the talent that you got. Jared Goff, $50 million, Aiden Hutchinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. What are you talking about retooling year? Yeah, you had to retool the coaches and retool the offensive line, but you still have a lot of talent to be able to figure this out. You're never going to have 5 perfect offensive linemen. You're going to have injuries. So the way in which we as fans get used to getting kicked in the nuts, they're going to battle. They're going to battle all the way. They're going to win that Bears game. Everyone's going to be excited. And then they're going to lose in the postseason. What are you talking about? You don't have enough talent. Seattle, guys, Jackson and Jigba will have 5 touchdowns on you. Don't play Seattle. Don't play the Packers on the road. You maybe are hoping the Eagles get upset. Maybe you get the Bears and they're overconfident after the last game. You could do some things, but ask yourself, are you really winning the Super Bowl? That's like asking a Michigan fan this year, we got Bryce Underwood, but we're going to win the title. Everyone would laugh you out of the room. Everybody predicted 9-3, and everybody this year kind of felt like, okay, they can get to the postseason. Maybe if they were realistic, maybe could get to the Super Bowl. It was tough, but I think that with some aggressive moves in free agency and the trade deadline, you could have been there. This year looks like the best team in the AFC is the Broncos and the Patriots. You might have missed a window. You might have miscalculated if you thought behind the scenes it's a retooling year. There's no real superpower, and maybe I'm wrong, but I look at it like the Lions are going to tease you, get you all excited again, right back to the playoffs, and then right back to elimination, probably in the second round.
Doc, before we get to mailbag, I do want to ask you, NFC North, Bears beat the Eagles, Packers beat the Lions. Doesn't seem like the Packers are going anywhere. I do want to get your thoughts on if you think the Bears are going anywhere. Vikings are still figuring out their quarterback, but what have you kind of learned after this weekend looking at this NFC North? Because the big conversation, I mean, I always use the Bills, for example. The Bills, they haven't won a Super Bowl yet with Josh Allen, but they've gotten close. But now look at the Patriots. They've arrived. Mm-hmm. The NFL is so interesting. What makes it so great is you go from, you go from worst to first. The Patriots are kind of experiencing that where they're a bad team. Now they're in first place in the AFC and in their division. You never know what happens on a year-to-year basis in the NFL. That's why windows are so important. But what do you make of this division for the future, Doc? Do you still have that confidence the Lions can kind of maybe not dominate this division, but still be the king in this division? Maybe not this year, but for future years? Or do you think it's going to be a tougher task than it used to be the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And listen, you got a guy in the chat, Trevor. He wants me to take my shirt off like Ben Johnson. I'm not going to do that, bro. Listen, we don't do it. We don't do that kind of stuff, my man. Listen, we all kind of got defensive about Ben Johnson. He's a genius. You don't win 9 games in the NFL without knowing. Look, he knows the secrets, guys. And that's also the ultimate respect to Dan Campbell. It's the ultimate respect to Matt Patricia that this guy learned all the lessons to how to win. And you think that him taking his shirt off was for the cameras and the fans? No, that's for his team. That's for him. That's for the locker room. That's for the boys. So he learned something different from Matt Patricia. He took the best of his learnings on how to build a rugged team. Guess what, guys? Why are they winning? It's not rocket science. They built an offensive line. They can run the football. They eat the clock up, and they're managing to eke out defensive wins by making some turnovers. They built in the trenches. They're able to win games. And so you have a real problem with the Bears. The Bears have your secret. They have your game plan, and Ben Johnson's an OG. It's stamped. It's proven. You're going to have a battle. I am happy this happened this year to the Lions. I'm happy that this whole everybody's like, oh, the non-aggression at the free agency. You just take one guy out and put one guy in, and we're going to go and find all these practice squad guys, and the Legion of Whom is going to take you to a Super Bowl. Guys, football is at the truest nature an easy game. The best football players win, period. And the Lions are going to go out and get some. And hopefully there's some guys that are proven outside of the organization. I think they learned the lesson. They're not going to be this stubborn ever again. They will never, ever front in front of the media where you thump your chest where after you choked in the NFC Championship. They're never going to do that. But they were excited. They got to the dance for the first time. Clearly, I've done that before too, so I get it. This happened, and I'm glad it happened. That the fans were right. The fans told you your biggest weakness. How did the fans see it and you didn't? The fans saw it. You saw it, Booner. No disrespect. A Michigan fan saw it. Trevor saw it. Everybody saw it. It's funny. It's in some way maddening, but I do think they're going to learn from this. These guys learn. You got to use every single tool humanly possible and get lucky to win a Super Bowl. You can't cut corners. Never in a million years are you going to win a Super Bowl not making a bold, impactful trade deadline move that will help your football team get better. You can't stand pat. You can't. So I'm happy they're going to learn their lesson. It's going to get tougher. Listen, I'm happy now. The Vikings, and we can laugh and bring it full circle. The Vikings thought J.J. McCarthy, the cheater, the guy that handed the football off, was going to lead them to wins. That's a fireable offense right there, right then and there. J.J. McCarthy was going to be your starting quarterback over a guy that was proven? That is an epic mistake. That guy couldn't hit at the broadside of a barn. That guy can't play quarterback. And he needs to sit for 5 years before he ever thinks of being a starter in the NFL. The Michigan fooled everybody. That's the reason why people are mad. It's one big facade of nothing. That team I don't worry about. They made a mistake with the worst. That's the worst mistake you can make is drafting a quarterback like that. And that's a big mistake. That sets you back. I'm worried about the Packers. And I'm always going to be worried about the Bears. But it's the Lions, Packers, and Bears, oh my, and let's get after it. It's going to make everybody better. The Lions will be in the mix every couple of years, but look out for the Bears. They have the secret sauce. And I love the rivalry that's going to grow between the Lions and the Bears, baby. Let's go. And I can't wait. I may have to fire up the old truck and get out there to Chicago for that must-win game. But I love it.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, FisherCTSports.com.